Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. I am your disheveled goblin host who managed to smack himself twice in the face with a drill, and today we have a good, diverse amount of fantasy news to get through, from book cover reveals to adaptations and weird niche stuff. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into the My Face Hurts. And if you would like to see the top 10 most streamed shows of 2022, according to Nielsen, we'll be going over those at the end of the news, because fantasy and sci-fi did pretty well. And the first bit of news we're going to be covering here today is that Tor.com has given us the cover for the next Murderbot book. That is right, Martha Wells' System Collapse has this art on it from Jamie Jones, with cover design by @C.Fultzer. If you pay attention at all on the channel here, you know that Murderbot is one of my favorite ongoing modern sci-fi series, and maybe just one of my favorite sci-fi series altogether. And so seeing this made me go, yay! But we're going to move from there on over to another Tor cover reveal for Mammoths at the Gate by Nevo, with art by Alyssa Winnass, and again, cover design by @C.Fultzer. Who are you, C.Fultzer? I also really like this cover design as well. I've said for a while that Orbit has been putting out pretty consistently my favorite looks for fantasy books for a while, but Tor, well done. And in just a bit of fun quickie news, currently in the r/fantasy subreddit, they are taking submissions for people to be voting for their top 10 fantasy novels of all time. And I went ahead, oh wow, I am actively bleeding. Hold up. I am running late today, but the fantasy news really must flow. So yes, back on topic. I've gone ahead and submitted my top 10, and I recommend if you want to influence the results we will be going over here on the channel, you do yours as well. Do the glasses counteract the vibe of me having a shiner I gave myself on my face? And in some exciting George R.R. Martin news, it seems the film rights to his story Hunter's Run has been acquired by Exile Content. Now, Exile Content is actually known for making both Spanish and English content, which makes sense that they picked up this story from George R.R. Martin because this sci-fi story is his only book with a Latino lead. And I'm excited to also note that this is a story from Martin, but also co-authored by one of the authors behind The Expanse, Daniel Abraham. Not much more is known about its production yet, but I will keep you informed. And I'm sure you saw it coming, but we have a few updates around the success of The Last of Us show. It seems that the second episode followed most people's predictions, and yes, actually had a greater viewership on its release than the first episode. In fact, it was up 22% from the series debut, which makes it the second largest week 2 growth for any HBO original drama ever. Episode 1 is now up to 18 million viewers. The word of mouth for the show, I feel like, is off the charts. I know even friends of mine who don't normally like sci-fi fantasy content have been not only watching it, but talking about it in their circles and Twitters. And I wouldn't be surprised to not see as much growth for episode 3, but still a substantial amount. Partially because I also think there was still that hesitation of like, maybe episode 1 is great, but episode 2 could fall off, but I'm gonna be bold enough to say that episode 2 made Tessa's character better overall. Ooh, fight me. Unsurprisingly, we've also seen a 230% increase in sales for the game over in the UK, and I'm sure the numbers are similar around the world. But that's gonna go ahead and bring us to our last bit of news for The Last of Us, which is unfortunately a bit of a negative one. And that is that one of the co-creators, in fact the director of the game, Bruce Straley, was snubbed from being in the credits, and now it's being reported that he's actually calling for unionization within the gaming industry so that things like this stop happening. I don't know Bruce Straley or his history in the industry, but it does seem a bit crazy to me for HBO to be leaving off the name of the original director of the game. Maybe he didn't write the entire story, I'm sure he did have a lot of influence on it, but it's just a lose-lose not to put him there. It makes HBO look bad, and it's just taking away credit from someone who obviously had some of their talent result in the game being what it is. So I'm more just confused why they wouldn't just do it. And while I don't want to pretend like I'm the most connected to the video game industry creator and I know exactly who this guy is, this just seems a bit extra sour when you see this guy's direction of the game influence so heavily the direction of the show. Whether or not he'll be added, I'm not sure, but I'll keep you updated. And it seems we have another World of Warcraft controversy here. World of Warcraft Classic lead Brian Birmingham has parted ways with Blizzard after voicing concerns about the company's forced stack ranking policy. The policy in question reportedly states managers at Blizzard are obliged to give a low developing rating, something that could impact an employee's financial status and future promotion potential, to a certain percentage of its staff in order to meet a quota laid out by the parent company, Activision Blizzard. Birmingham stated when Blizzard team leads questioned this policy, the World of Warcraft directors explained that while they did not agree, the reasons given by executive leadership were that it was important to squeeze the bottommost performers as a way to ensure everybody continues to grow. When I first read this, I was like, okay, so you want to just mark the worst people on the team, and wait a minute, immediately start realizing how this isn't just a standard like, oh, okay, we're just disciplining people who are maybe not living up to the job we hired them for, and instead it has an assumption that someone within the team has to be marked. And that's how this is supposed to work. If everyone's performing great, someone still gets dinged. Additionally, Birmingham's email stated that the leads were asked to keep this policy confidential, as it was a part of an ongoing discussion, and the company didn't want Activision's executives to make things even worse. The threat of retaliation cannot be allowed to motivate our actions, Birmingham wrote. Even if it's legal, it's certainly not ethical, and I cannot support it. In a recent thread addressing Bloomberg's article, Birmingham stated that the team at Blizzard pushed back on this policy in 2021. I truly believed we had reversed the developing quota policy, he reflected. When the sexual harassment lawsuit was revealed later that year, we saw some changes following that as well, and it felt like we could make an impact on Activision Blizzard's policy. He continued, the realization that there was still a minimum quota for developing, despite our objections and sternly worded letters, leads me to believe I was operating under an illusion. I hope Blizzard's positive culture can overcome Activision Blizzard's poison, but it isn't succeeding in doing that yet. There has been an additional statement by Brian Birmingham where he said, I wasn't intending to make this public, but apparently it's in the news already, so I'd like to at least set the record straight. I am no longer an employee of Blizzard Entertainment, though I would return if allowed to so that I could fight the stack ranking policy from inside. It is certainly not the worst thing I've ever heard of a company doing. It's just an aggressive ranking system to force on your managers that could easily result in a toxic work environment, cause people to be competitive with each other unnecessarily, have each other even sabotage work so that you don't get the lower rating. As someone who is a software engineer, trust me, that stuff can happen, but it's also just a friendly reminder that this company has games coming out in the future, and they still continue to be just awful, so keep that in mind when you consider those games. I'm not trying to tell you to do anything one way or the other, I just believe in voting with my wallet. But from there, we're going to switch over into some fun, positive news around the author Andrew Rowe, who has had an adaptation of his Arcane Ascension series into a light novel currently available over at Tapas. This is a phenomenal example of the current trend we're seeing within the sci-fi fantasy genres, and something I think is only going to increase exponentially in the near future, and that is that adaptations happening for many of our favorite stories into other mediums that maybe before could occasionally happen into comics or graphic novels, but is going to become so much more common. As mediums of all kinds, from mangas to light novels to comics to movies to TV shows to webtoons to just mini-series on a YouTube channel, garner more and more respect, and technology to create stuff on this level is in more and more people's hands. The stories we love are going to be at the center of watching the effects of all of this technological revolution, and that makes me pretty happy. And we have also seen Orbit has announced their acquisition of Long Live Evil by Sarah Brennan. Time to prepare for your villain era in the best way possible. We've just added the first adult novel from Sarah Brennan to our list for 2024, and it's her most villainous yet. Long Live Evil is a fantasy novel for everyone who ever rooted for the bad guy. And just continuing that sentimentality from the last story, yeah, we're also seeing more and more writers from all walks of life telling all kinds of stories get more and more traditional backing because, yeah, we're in the day and age where it's undeniable that anyone from anywhere could do something incredible, and I love that. Daniel, enough with the sentimental bullspit. Get me some hard-hitting adaptation news. Fine! I'll get you two back to back, because Frog and Toad is going to be adapted over at Apple TV+, still the worst named streaming service in existence, and Critical Role's new deal with Amazon has been announced, and it looks like they will be getting a film and an animated series adapting another of their campaigns titled Mighty Nine. In quickie news, we also had the Oscar nominees announced, and well, yes, I do not like the Oscars. I was really happy to see Everything Everywhere All at Once take 11 nominations. That is incredible and well earned. Of course, I have my disagreements with the list, but this seemed to be a better than most years for the Oscars round of nominees. Good for you, Oscars, you did somewhat all right. What's this? I've left my video game fans Baron. Not anymore, I haven't, because Age of Wonders 4 has had its official first trailer dropped and release date announced. Age of Wonders 4 will be released May 2nd of this year, 2023, for the PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox. And I want to just say, half the reason I'm covering this is because it's a release date that's soon and wasn't general, which is a rather large problem with release dates today. And in a last-minute fantasy news update, it has been confirmed that both Lance Riddick and Toby Stephens have been cast in the upcoming Percy Jackson and the Olympians adaptation over at Disney+, with Zeus and Poseidon being the respective castings. I like both of these quite a bit, and I have to just challenge Disney to make Zeus as horny as he is in the myths. Do it, you cowards. Do it! And that brings us to the Nielsen's top 10 most streamed shows of 2022, where science fiction and fantasy seem to dominate. Quick clarification, the list I'm about to go over in detail is streaming originals, meaning shows that were actually made to be streamed, and the actual list of just all shows is on the screen right now, which is far less fantasy oriented, though I particularly am interested in streaming originals because those seem to be where a lot of the big budget and more niche stuff is finding greater and greater success, so let us go ahead and look on into that. Two of the top 3 spots alone fall within the genres. The Stranger Things, of course, taking the #1 spot with 34 episodes in its catalog. It saw 52 billion minutes of viewership. In the #3 spot, we saw Wednesday with only 8 episodes in its catalog, and how late it came out in the year. Incredible to see it this high, but with a substantial step down to 18.6 billion minutes viewed. And if you would like to just know what the top 10 shows are in order, it is Stranger Things, Ozark, Wednesday, Cobra Kai, Bridgerton, Virginia River, Dahmer, Love is Blind, Inventing Anna, The Crown, The Boys, Great British Baking Show, another of my favorites, The Umbrella Academy, awesome, The Last Kingdom, and The Rings of Power in the 15th spot. That's right, I brought you extra. Over-deliver. Also quite notable on this list, all but 2 of these top 15 are Netflix, but those 2 are Amazon Prime. At the beginning of the year, I was under the impression that Prime was very cash wealthy, but actually didn't have that many subscribers. Clearly I'm wrong, because they're the only one putting up shows individually that rival Netflix's biggest hits, it seems. Though Netflix still just running it. Because I put that I hit myself twice in the face with a drill on Twitter, and everyone wanted to know how, the people who stuck around to the end of fantasy news get to know, as long as Kayla promises not to laugh. Don't So my desk came loose because I tend to jump on it and do dumb stuff for skits. And so I grabbed the drill that beautiful, wonderful Kayla bought for me. That happens to also be pretty darn powerful. And I decided to just sit down here and give it a little bit of a tighten. And it slipped out as I was drilling it, and the drill whapped up right into my face. There. It hurt, but because, don't you laugh, but because it slipped out, I didn't think it got tight enough, so while I was going, ow, I slipped it back in and was like, I'm just gonna hold it real tight. Turns out this drill, powerful enough that if you hold it real tight, if you go full throttle, it doesn't matter. It's still gonna slap you in the face. So I managed to hit myself twice in the exact same spot, resulting in this. Any questions?
Many.
But this has just been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Check out my books if you'd like to support my authorial career, and hit the Patreon if you'd like to support everything I do here. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.